right, good evening and welcome to the Dreary Midnight Podcast. My name is Lisa, my pronouns are she, they.
My name is Celeste, my pronouns are she, her.
And listeners don't know this, but Celeste has been gone for a month.
I'm back, baby!
Hooray! Back, baby! So, while Celeste has been gone, I've been talking to friends and loved ones about any spooky things that they have encountered. And so what we're doing for this episode is to play for Celeste all of the things that I have learned. So this is going to be a really long episode because we have a bunch of really cool material.
Maybe these stories will make my jet lag go away.
Hopefully they will, because you'll be woken up by terror. Alright, so starting out, we're going to start with a shorter one.
Wait, don't you have to do the intro?
What?
The welcome to the intro music or whatever.
Okay, so we're gonna do intro music,
Did
and then
I
we're
not?
gonna start with Emily. Alright, but wait, we can still sing the intro music song for the first time in like a month.
Okay.
Intro music.
Intro music.
And to Emily, Lagoo.
My pronouns are she, her.
Alright, and we go like way back.
Yeah.
To like elementary school, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You went to elementary school with my twin sister.
Yeah, and that's how we met. But Emily has graciously agreed to come on and share a couple spooky stories.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you much. So, what's the first one?
Okay, so one time I was with a friend. We were hanging out and we were in his room, and all of a sudden he had like a record on his wall.
Okay.
And it just fell out of the holder.
Was it like hung up like I had my posters up?
Yeah.
And it just kind of
the record just fell out of the holder.
And no like earthquakes or
Nope.
weird house creaks or
Nothing. The house was quiet.
What record was it?
I think it was a Beatles one.
Okay, well, if you know of any ghosts, dear listeners, that have a vendetta against the Beatles and also live in the Virginia area, let us know.
It could have also been his mom, since his mom had passed away a couple months or almost a year prior, giving him a sign. She loved the Beatles.
I like that idea.
Yeah, so I'm saying it was her just checking
it's the
in.
mom, yeah, for sure. Making sure you two weren't getting up to anything.
Right.
Yeah. Which I'm sure you weren't, because we're all wholesome children.
You hear that? We're all wholesome.
My mother does, in fact, listen to this. Yes, Mom, I was a wholesome child. But you said you had one other, right?
Yeah, so I was with the same friend, and might have been the same day or a different day.
How old are y'all at this point?
29.
Oh, so this was
recent. This was like months ago.
Okay,
this was recent.
So earlier this year.
Yeah, earlier this year or late last year.
So here I am thinking that y'all were in high school.
No. This was like recent.
Yeah. For clarity, we're recording August of 2023, so like earlier in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we just happened to be, chilling, playing Nintendo or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we hear this little nyoing.
Like one of the bouncy sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was nothing in the room. Again, the house was quiet. I look over at him to make sure, he heard it.
Yeah.
He looks over at me and was like, "Did you hear that?" I was like, "Yeah."
And it was neither of y'all, because you said you were playing video games, but it was neither of y'all's machine.
Mine was on silent.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
He opened his closet, which he thinks is a portal.
Okay. Emily just did giant air quotes there.
His closet has pull-down steps to an attic.
That's hella creepy.
Yeah. But all my instances have happened with him.
That's weird.
Right.
That's really weird.
I don't know if this was like within, like everything was within this same time frame.
Yeah.
I was with him. I was standing in his doorway, and then he was talking and then just froze. Just stood still And, like, he said that his body left and he could see himself as, like...
Like, his spirit or whatever had felt like it left his body.
Yes.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have him on. I don't actually know him, so maybe not. But maybe we should have him on.
I mean, he would have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah. So, one evening, I was in my room, sitting on my bed, and then
How recent was this?
Within the last year. So I was sitting on my bed. My bed is against the left side of my room. There's a slight, like, ledge covering a heating unit all the way down. There's a window looking out, and then I was looking out my door, and I just get, like, this feeling that there's, like, a presence out in my hallway.
Huh.
So then I call my friend Heidi, who proclaims as a medium.
Okay.
And she's like, yes, there is definitely something there. I quickly close my door. You know, I put my hand on my door saying, you are not welcome.
Yeah.
You know, I say the Lord's Prayer, you are not welcome, and all that. The same night, but as a protector, I see, I want to say it's like Egyptian, but he's like a dog.
Anubis.
Yes.
Hang on. One
Yes.
second. I'm gonna show you a photo
Okay.
because we just did the King Tut episode, so I
Yeah.
still have a bunch of books from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anubis.
Yeah. So Heidi had, I guess, conjured or sent Anubis to me to look out for me.
Huh.
And I was like, Heidi, I'm getting a presence of this really tall figure outside my window. She's like, don't worry, that's just Anubis there to protect you.
That's great.
So,
And I've been in your room before.
Yes.
And so the door is just sort of straight across from the window.
Yes.
So it sort of makes sense that it's right there.
there, yeah.
And interesting thing, Anubis falls into this category of what's called a psychopomp, which is a category in a lot of folklore that kind of escorts souls to the afterlife. Kind of shows up as a kind of a watchman in a lot of ways. Keep an eye out for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is wild.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's kind of topical because you and I were talking about recent episodes.
Yeah.
So that what made you think of it? Or-
Yeah.
That's wild and very topical and huzzah. Did you have any socials or anything that you wanted to promote?
So I have a little baking company.
Yeah.
It's called Mostly Desserts.
With 2 Z's.
Yep.
Yeah.
MOSTLY_DEZZERTS. That's the Instagram.
All right. And I'll leave that in the show notes as well. And I'll tag everybody that's on this show today if they want to be tagged. But I will be tagging Emily's baking page in case you want to go follow that. I can confirm the cupcakes are phenomenal. But stay away from this guy's house, apparently, and safe travels on to the next story. Thank you for coming on, Emily.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so what'd you think?
First of all, I don't know if I would feel comfortable hanging out with her friend knowing that there's like a portal in his closet.
Yeah, no, it was sort of like
Like
my
at least
first
not at his house.
Yeah. No, my first impulse was like, oh, we should get him on. Oh, wait, maybe we shouldn't.
Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't mess with things that we don't know about.
Yeah. We're not her friend Heidi who has an in with Anubis, right?
No. Also, your reaction made me crack up when he said that his soul left his body, and you're like, no, that can't happen. No, thank you.
But yeah, Emily's links will be in the show notes. Both of us can attest that the cupcakes are delicious. But yeah, so Emily's links will be in the show notes. But
I am not over the fact that she apparently fully consciously saw or perceived a figure
Yeah.
of Anubis.
That's so weird. Like, oh my goodness. Right?
That is weird.
Yeah.
Like, when it started off with the record falling, I was like, okay, whatever, that can be explained
Yeah.
away. And then it just kept getting progressively weirder and weirder and weirder. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what's going on anymore.
No. Yep. Yeah. Okay. But again, Emily's links will be in the show notes, and person. It's going to be kind of a longer one. Yeah, so it's going to be kind of a longer one. So this is from our friend and coworker, Bryce.
Nice.
And so Bryce and I talked a day after Emily and I talked, and we, like a lot of these, he went in intending only to talk about one or two things, and then we turned the mics off and got chatting, and it got back on and was like, oh my god, here's this other thing that we wound up chatting about. So, here is Bryce's stories. Ooh. So Bryce, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Bryce Thomas.
So, Bryce also has spooky stories because we do ghost guiding and that's kind of our thing. So, what's your spooky story?
So my story occurred a couple months ago, and it is about a guest seeing something that I didn't tell them about, and that they had no way of doing.
Okay. What were you about to tell? Were you about to tell, like, a specific building, or was it, a specific...
I was about to tell, so I just finished telling a specific story right around the corner from the Carlisle house.
Okay.
Right near the garden of the Carlisle.
Okay. So you had, the house that you were standing in front of was like this big one with a yard and this whole thing, and you had just walked around the corner?
Yep, so I just walked around the corner, and I'm standing in front of the backyard garden of the Carlisle house. My back is to the garden.
Okay.
And the guests are facing me.
Okay. So, you're standing in the back garden, and you're about to do a story.
I'm about to do a story. Or I just finished the story.
Okay.
And after I finished the story, I was walking to my next story.
Okay.
And so I'm walking to this next story. I'm almost there. One of the people catches up to me.
Yeah.
And this person asked me, who was the little girl in the back of his garden? And
what?
I looked at them and I was like, what are you talking about? There is nobody in the back of that garden. I looked before I started. And they insisted that, no, I saw a little girl in the back of his garden. And so I'm like, okay, would you describe this person to me? And so they do, and they said she was wearing a white dress. She was about probably 6 to 8 years old.
Okay.
White dress, blonde hair, done up in pigtails, and she was holding a stuffed bear, like a teddy bear, and she was sitting with her ankles crossed on the gazebo in this garden.
Okay. And that's I can picture the garden that you're talking about, and the gazebo is like a little ways in. You can see that it's there from the street, but you can't always see all the way in, right?
Yes, that's correct. And it's also far enough away from the street to where it's not like somebody could have just hopped the fence and gotten in. Like, if you're in, you're in. Yeah.
No, like you have to go all the way up to the other side and come back down. Like the back fence is like street level is easily chest height for in order to get up to fence level.
Especially for a child.
Yeah, it's like well over child height.
And so at this point, I'm internally freaking out.
Yeah, because I never heard of a ghost child in that particular location.
And neither had I. But what freaked me out so much is that there's not necessarily a story, but there's a talk recently of others seeing this child spirit. And
In that location?
in that location, I believe, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And the scariest thing about it is that this child spirit is apparently an omen of death.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, like, circling back to the Dreary Midnight Woman in White episode, that's kind of a major trope for the color white in general. Good grief. Did you check in with the group chat later? Because
I did.
Yeah.
I checked. So I checked in with the group chat later. And I basically was like, "Hey, y'all! I saw one of my." I basically told them what I just told.
Yeah.
And what I just said, and that's when I was told, "Oh,
yeah,
that's scary."
Good grief. Because again, so obviously I know we do ghost tours together. I know the garden that you're talking about, and like it wasn't until the group chat started popping off that I had heard about a ghost child in the backyard.
Right, I had never heard about that before either.
Because, I mean, at least the way I tell that one in particular, like all of the hauntings that I know about are in the front yard.
That's how I tell it.
Yeah.
I think I actually learned from you and
Yeah,
others. The way I tell it is the same. All the hauntings that I know of are in the front.
Yeah.
And so there should be nothing back there like that.
Yeah.
And
that's wild.
The thing that gets me is that I did not mention this child to anyone.
Yeah.
At all. There was no way, and it's not a story that's told, so it's not like they could have heard it on a different tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way they could have known.
Yeah. And has anyone figured out so far, like, the potential identity of this kid, or no?
I'm not sure about potential identity. What I, based upon group chat and what others have seemed to know, what has been found is that another person, friends, had seen it, and then supposedly about 2 weeks after that, one of those people's family members passed away.
But yeah, that is so creepy. Good grief.
And that was probably that's probably one of my best stories on no prompt, nothing, just I've seen something. They were completely serious. I thought they were joking at first, but no, they completely serious were like, really, no, who is that? Like, because they were concerned because they thought it was...
Yeah, because like initially it's just like, here is an unattended child
right
at night. Like
whose
where is this person is adult?
Like, whose child is this?
Yeah.
And
just got done with listening to Bryce's first story, so what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I requested that we pause and react right now because there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, there's so much. So we just learned about the little girl in the back of the Carlisle house.
Yeah. The gazebo.
Yeah.
Which I agree, you can't see the gazebo well.
Yeah. But he said he was standing across the street, so that does.
It raises it. It raises the elevator. Yeah. Okay, because if you're standing on next to the wall, you can't see the gazebo.
Yeah. I think, but because I think even as I said when I was talking to Bryce earlier, it was like if you're standing right by the wall, there's a wall and then a fence, and the wall ends right about chest height for an adult. So you're not seeing into the gazebo, but if you're across the street, you can kind of see into the
because distance.
Yeah,
then that makes more sense. But I'm not saying I don't believe them. I'm just saying that. Do you think maybe it could have, because it was nighttime too, like. I wonder if there was some sort of, and I know it's too late to go back and ask because that guest is long gone.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there was some sort of glow or ghostly hue that made her stand out a little bit. You know? Because
even with the different angle for something, it would still be kind of hard to see the thing. Yeah. To see the girl.
To see her so clearly, like they could see. She was wearing a white dress. She had blonde hair and ponytails, and it was
a high necked dress,
and she had a teddy bear.
Yeah,
which honestly sounds a little cliche, but
but it's also like if you're standing across the street, presumably at this point it's nighttime. that back garden isn't really lit up. It's the street level is lit up, but the back garden is not.
And then I was thinking, like, maybe it's an employee's daughter or something, but the museum is closed by then.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, well, like, maybe they, came in through the back garden through the front of the house, but then it's like, well, some people would see somebody, like, trespassing.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then the same, like what you guys are saying, why would a child be there alone?
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I haven't had a chance to look into turn of the 20th century hotel situation for that. But
And if they were there alone, how did they get out so fast that the guests saw them as they were behind Bryce, but then when Bryce turned around to see multiple times to see this child, there was nobody there?
Yeah, that's weird. That's really,
Right?
really weird. Yeah. So that's Bryce part 1. Next up, we're going to do Bryce part 2.
Also, I don't like the fact that there's an omen of death in Alexandria, okay? I can't.
Just
an omen
you
of death in
wait.
our city. Oh my god. Are you going to make me paranoid to go to sleep? Am I going to have to move?
Maybe. Just wait till you get to Matthew and Eliza. Oh my
God.
All right, so
Okay,
before we
Bryce
do that, we're going to do
part
Bryce
2.
part 2.
There is one other one, not related to this little child spirit, but it was a bit many years before when before I started my
Doing ghost tours.
ghost tours.
Yeah. So what year are we talking?
We're talking 2012.
Okay.
I'm in the 8th grade,
Okay.
and I come here on a field trip like many others do.
Yeah.
And
Did you do the ghost tour on
I
your
did.
field trip?
I did. I
love
did
it.
this company, and
So,
that's one of the. I think that's one of the reasons why.
yeah.
But I went on this tour.
Yeah.
And I actually went on the route that I now work.
Okay, so you're doing the ghost tour.
Right.
It's 2012, little baby Bryce.
Right, and this is the first story up.
Yeah.
This is as far as I recall, it's the first story. And so we're standing in an alley,
Okay.
and she was telling,
Okay.
the guy was telling the story.
Yeah. And so we just confirmed that which story you're talking about. This story in particular involves someone dying in a fire on their wedding day.
Yes.
Is the broad strokes of it. And then the future husband, almost husband, dies by his own hand a few days later.
Yes.
So you're in the alleyway where this guy was standing.
So this guy is standing with her back to the alleyway.
Okay.
And I can't remember when I took this picture. I have the picture with me. It must have been before this person went to start telling the story.
Yeah.
Or it was like after when there's nobody in the frame, is my
Right.
point. Nobody living, at least.
Yeah.
And so I'm just snapping away. Now, before the tour started, I had wiped off the camera, make sure there's nothing on the lens.
Yeah. Because it's 2012 and you still have your own separate camera. Yeah.
And and it's a clear night. It's warm out. It's clear. There's no weather. Is my point. Which makes this even more incredible because I take a bunch of pictures.
Yeah.
And the photo, I had not heard the story yet, and I didn't look at the photos until later because I was just so focused on it's a tour.
Yeah.
Ghost. You know, and all that.
As the 8th graders usually are, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the fun extra thing.
Right.
Yeah.
This is usually like the fun thing. I like history, but this is usually the fun thing for those who don't.
Yeah.
I hear this story, and I can't remember when I first looked at the photo, but at some point I looked at the photos I was taking, and the first couple ones there's nothing in the frame, and I regrettably don't have those again, so I can't share that comparison. But I do have the one that matters. In one of these photos, I swipe my phone, and standing in the middle, which where this thing was standing was kind of in between where there's an electrical box and a street light.
So it's well illuminated.
Yeah, it's well in there.
You can tell where it is in relation to...
I can tell where it is in relation to the things, other
Yeah.
things in the alley.
Yeah. Like, especially in relation to the streetlight, right?
Yeah, especially in relation. It's in front of it. So it's not like it's a part of the light. It's good distance in front, and it's not. You can't see any discernible features, but or not anything discernible. Like you can't see like a true face, but it looks in the shape of a mist. It's a mist, and it's in a shape of, to me, what looks like a woman in a wedding dress.
All right, so just for we're jumping in here. I'm playing midway through because Celeste gasped at the exact same time as I gasped
in the recording
for the story about the girl in the wedding dress.
It sounded like we gasped together, even though you recorded this weeks ago.
Yeah, so Lisa on August the 14th and Celeste on September the 4th gasped at the same time.
And they're both 4s.
Anyway, one of the several reasons I am not getting married in white, but let's proceed. And that's like the big thing for that alleyway.
That's the big thing for that alleyway in that area. And I saw it, and I went, no way. I can't believe did I catch her? And at first I thought it was something called matrixing, which is when you just create shapes out of things that aren't there.
Yeah.
But
Pareidolia,
yeah, and I showed it to others. And I didn't tell them what I thought it was. And they all confirmed. They were like, Bryce, this looks like a lady in a wedding dress.
Good grief.
And I went, and it's very clear. You can see what, to me, it looks like the veil, the actual dress, maybe perhaps an arm.
Yeah.
But you can see it clearly. It looks clearly like a wedding dress, and that's what struck me the most. Now, I've not seen her since.
Yeah, same.
And I do this quite a lot.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen her since, but I think that, and I'm not entirely sure why she decided to make her presence known to me.
Yeah.
But I think part of me wonders, and this could just be me reading into this too much, but part of me wonders if she knew that I was going to be working here.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if she was kind of making her like welcome later on.
Yeah, got the timeline a little bit. All right, so we just got done with Bryce's second story about
with
the bride.
Okay, I have seen the picture before. He showed it to me before.
Yeah.
And you can totally... Have you seen it before? Did he show it to you?
He showed it to me that day. I think he texted it to me as well. So it'll be linked in the show notes.
Yeah. But you can totally see, like, the mist figure.
It's so weird. Again, one of the several other reasons that I will not be getting married in white and away from all fire sources.
Serious.
Yeah. But...
Do you think I should ask him, if he hadn't had this experience, do you think he would have still become a ghost guide? Or do you think this is the thing that solidified? Did she help us did she help recruit?
Bryce? I feel like that is one of life's eternal questions. Bryce, if you're on Instagram, comment your response when this episode post comes out.
Oh my god.
But honestly, so... Bryce's next story wasn't one of the ones that he was originally going to share, but as things often do, he and I got to just generally chit-chatting after, like, swapping stories, whatever. And then I told him something, I don't even remember what I told him. He was like, oh my god, let me tell you this other thing. And he told me the entire third story, and I was like, are you good if we turn the mic back on and get that third story? So that's what this one is.
Nice.
This one involves sleep paralysis and a ghost we talk about on the tour that I think has also been referred to in one of the older listener episodes. So go back to Meredith's story for that. But what's this last one?
So I get sleep paralysis. I should start there. And my sleep paralysis, I get it every once in a while. And it's only in like situations where I, don't sleep the right way or something. And usually my sleep paralysis is, to me, I don't see anything, but it feels like a like old lady in her like say 70s, and it feels like she is breathing on my neck and like touching my neck, like putting her hand on my neck.
And do you sleep face down?
And I sleep face down.
So
it
it's
feels,
like breathing on the back of your neck.
Yeah, she's just like kind of breathing on the back of my head and neck, and like kind of like touching the back of my neck, and it doesn't feel like threatening or anything. It feels weird, but it doesn't feel like it's like a bad spirit or whatever that is.
Yeah. Doesn't feel super negative.
It doesn't feel negative. It doesn't feel positive either, but it's not like she's not overtly negative. She's just like there.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Is the best way I can describe the vibes. But for this story, like the vibes were different, and it's the only time they've been different.
Okay. So the way you told it to me, it started the differences started when you started shadowing for ghost tours.
Yes. So when I started shadowing for the tours, ghost tours, the first time I shadowed, we were at the last stop in a graveyard.
And it's a graveyard that and there's like an unknown soldier there. It's a whole deal. If you've heard again Meredith's story, it's that same graveyard that she talks about. But yeah.
And so we're in the graveyard, and this individual finishes up and is, kind of talking to me like, hey, what'd you think? Have any questions? Blah, 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 all that. Yeah. Things you do when you shadow.
Yeah.
And so we wrap that up, and we walk out, and I don't, this is important for later on, I don't touch anything on the way out. I just kind of walk out as you normally would walk out of a place. And that night, I get sleep paralysis. But this time it's different. And the way it's different is that feels like it's a man and younger. And he feels like he's in, I don't know, roughly 20s to 40s. Right? I don't know exactly what age. Yeah. But
definitely not a 70-year-old
He's definitely
lady.
not an old man.
Yeah.
And he feels more aggressive. This one feels more negative. And confrontation. The best way I can describe it is it feels like also breathing on me and touching my neck like the other one. But this one feels confrontational, kind of like if you've ever been confronted by somebody, like a sibling, who's like, don't go in my room again.
Yeah.
It's like
stay
that.
out of my personal
space. Yeah,
space.
like stay out of my space, stay out of my room. It's like that, but it's magnified. And it feels like he's like, I don't know what space this thing doesn't want me to go into. And I don't see him either, but...
Yeah. So it's sort of a keep out, but keep out from where?
Right. It's like keep out, and it's like, okay, you're going to have to be more specific, dude. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Does this come back a couple of times?
It does. It comes back, I would say, 2 or 3 more times in a row, because I was shadowing...
a few different people.
Yeah, a few different people in like that week in a row. And
was this also more times of sleep paralysis in a row than you usually get?
Yes. Usually it's like once every couple months, if that. It's not that often. This time it was like consistent.
A couple of times in a row. Which is like weird.
Which is weird for me. It's not normal.
Yeah.
And so finally I'm shadowing
me.
I'm shadowing you.
Surprise, I trained Bryce. Helped train Bryce.
So I'm shadowing you. Yeah.
And so part of my thing, because I had heard from another guide on my first tour that I shadowed back in 2015, like he has very much his own tour persona, but he kind of breaks character for a second. It's like, touch the gate. I'll explain why in a second, but touch the gate. And so I do, and then he explains that sometimes this ghost has a tendency to follow people home. So, bouncing back to you, I tell this whole saga of, like, the coworker's full story, and that's why you touch the gate, and blah, blah, blah.
So I'm listening, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, all right, why not?
Can't hurt anything.
Yeah, like, it can't hurt to try. Because with the story is, it's starting to make sense in my mind. I'm like, oh, is it this spirit? Basically, things are making sense, and it's kind of adding up in ways where it's like really hard to be a coincidence. So I'm like, why not? I'll go ahead and try it. So I go, and when I'm done, and I touch the iron, this gate on the way out. And that night, there's no sleep paralysis of any kind. That sleep paralysis with the aggressive male, has never happened again. That freaked me out. So now I also say to people this same bit. And
The whole saga.
And I tell them.
Do you tell them your saga too?
Yep, I usually tell them mine, and
Yeah.
because usually I'll say something like, I know you probably don't believe me, but this is my personal. And then usually they'll touch the gate.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't, though.
Yeah. Well, you gave them fair warning.
Yeah, that's all you really can do.
I had heard the story that you told me about the guy that trained you, that it happened to him.
Yeah. And I do want to see if I can get him on the show at some
Yeah.
point, but I don't know if I still have his number. But, because he has since left and moved. And
retired.
stuff. Yeah.
I didn't know that same thing happened to Bryce.
Same. That was my first time hearing about that from Bryce, because Bryce is one of a couple people who have shadowed my tour, and it's one of those where it's like, I'm not the person doing his tour review at the end, so I don't hear about it again necessarily until
you go
just
on
now.
his tour or you talk to him.
Yeah. So this wasn't, and I think Bryce started like 2020-ish. Yeah, so I hadn't heard anything until that.
Same.
Yeah.
And you said it almost happened to you, or
so that is a saga for another day. I feel like I could talk at length about my own stuff, but I kept seeing random shadows out of the corner of my eye, and only over the course of the first summer that I had done ghost tours back in 2015. And it was like 2 sets of a couple of days, and they were only ever the times where I don't remember if I touched the gate or not.
Yeah, so because of you and the stories you've told me, I always touch the gate every time I'm over there.
Oh, for the one that you ended? Or just
No, the one that you, like if I ever shadow someone who's on the other route, because we're on different routes.
Yeah.
If I ever shadow anyone that's on your route, then I will be sure to touch the gate, even if they don't say touch the gate, because I know. But that is the creepiest thing, because even though he's prone to sleep paralysis, he said that it was different. He said it was happening way more, and
a
it
different
was
sort of sensation than before.
And I'm honestly surprised that he kept doing he was still shadowing. Yeah. Like he was like, well, this, but maybe that was just even more proof.
Yeah.
I'm like, these ghosts are out to get Bryce, man.
Yeah, no shit. We're going to take a brief break from talking about graveyards that we regularly spend time in. We got stories from our colleague Marissa, who's also a ghost tour guide, but her creepy stories aren't actually about ghost guiding. Bump it over to Lisa and Marissa in the ghost tour office from like a month ago.
Ooh.
Today I'm here with Marissa. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello. So I actually work with Lisa. We work together on the ghost tours.
Yeah. I'm excited. And so you said you had some kind of spooky stories that you wanted to share.
I do. So I've got 2 of them. So for my first story, this was 2006.
Okay.
I was in the freshman year of high school. It's May, and it's like the last week of classes, and I'm upstairs in my bedroom at my parents' house.
Okay.
My room is on the 2nd floor, and I was the only one up there at the time, and I'm studying for my exam for the next day.
Okay.
I got my textbook out in front of me. I'm sitting cross-legged on my bed, and on the foot of my bed I've got like this boombox because it's 2006.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the radio, one of the local radio stations. And I remember that I looked up towards my boombox because I thought that the radio announcer was saying something interesting and funny. So I kind of like glanced up and started laughing. And that's when I saw, kind of like to the right of my field of vision, it looked like a black, like billowy cloth that was kind of floating in the air.
Like a curtain or something?
It was like, kind of looked like like a black handkerchief was being waved in the air.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like looked up and to the right of my room, and hovering in the air, I actually saw like a black shadowy figure.
What?
In my room.
Oh my God.
Hovering in the air, yeah.
And was the handkerchief type of thing, like, where was it in relation to this figure? Is it like its entire thing, or is it an entire body, or is it like the face?
It was like an entire like so basically the best way to describe it was like it looked like it was like a head.
Yeah.
With no face, no facial features at all, and then it was wearing like a billowy, flowy robe, and what I saw was that robe in like the corner of it in like my field of vision.
Oh my God! Did it have a hat?
No.
That's so. Because have you heard of the Hat Man phenomenon?
No.
That is like a known phenomenon, is that like people will wake up or look up from studying or whatever, and there'll be a figure, sometimes with a long cloak, but the main thing is it looks like it's wearing like a 50s style fedora.
Oh wow.
And that's like a weirdly consistent thing, which is why I asked. But it's like, that is so creepy. But then what happened? Do you go back to studying? Do you
So like I stared at this thing for a few seconds, and I feel like it was staring at me somehow.
Yeah.
Like I never saw, there's no eyes or anything, but I felt like we were just looking at each other.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it did a complete 180, where like slowly, like head first, it kind of did like a 180 turn and started heading down towards my floor, and then it did like a swooping thing by my bed, and then like right by the foot of my bed, it turned down, and then I'm assuming it went through my floor.
Huh.
And
that's like there was just a plain old staircase in the middle of your floor or something?
No, I didn't really see where it went because the foot of my bed was blocking it from my field of vision. It kind of just like disappeared.
That's so weird. Did you notice anything like it after, like before or after?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's just like this one time thing.
And I have no idea how long it was there.
Yeah.
I only just like looked up for like 1 second, and then there it was.
Good grief. Oh my God.
As you can imagine, I was very freaked out.
Yeah,
I decided at that point I was done with studying.
Yeah, I would be too.
I actually pulled my sleeping bag out of the closet, like the sleeping bags I usually take to like friends' houses.
Yeah.
And I took it and I ran to my sister's room.
Yeah.
And I slept on her floor that night because I was not gonna stay in my room.
That sounds about right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. Like,
yeah, I was like, I don't want to see it again. I don't want it to come back.
Nope.
So
yeah, good grief. Yeah. Marissa thinking logically all the way through. Yeah, no, honestly though, I don't think I would be able to sleep in my own room if I saw something like that. Good grief.
Yeah, and I never saw that thing again.
Yeah. So it was just the one time in 2006. Wild.
Yeah. And like nobody died in the house because we were the first people to live in that house. My parents actually had it built like 3 years before.
Oh, so it's like definitely nothing.
It was definitely like a new house. Yeah. And then here's this thing.
Yeah. That's
in my
so
room.
Wild.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I'm sorry, did Marissa just see the fucking Grim Reaper or some shit?
Good grief. And it's just like, that was the first recording I did, and it's like, I don't know if we could top this. But, yeah.
And the way she described it moving.
Yeah. And it's one of those
so
things.
Uncanny.
Yeah. And it's like this weird thing where, like, you can... I think she described that sensation of like she can tell it's looking at her,
but
she can't see any eyeballs. There's no eyeballs, but you know when you're being looked at.
And she also, the fact that she said, I don't know how long it was there.
Yeah,
I just looked up and it was there. It could have been there for like 10 minutes, depending on how long she was looking at her book. Yeah, I'm going to hope and pray that it was just there for the DJ set, and also maybe
thought
it was
that
also
funny
listening.
We're just gonna hope that it's it also enjoyed the commentary that Marissa also enjoyed and was just there to catch the last of that broadcast.
That's so freaky. But she didn't say if it felt like malicious, right?
I don't think so.
It
No.
didn't have
but
like
it's still like.
It's still.
But if you're gonna sleep in somebody else's room, it doesn't seem good.
No, exactly.
You know? Yeah.
No, I would also, even if it was a good spirit, I would still sleep in someone's room.
Yeah.
That is I had a better instinct to leave that room than Bryce did, who was like, I guess I'll keep getting sleep paralysis.
But wait, there's more. And you said you had one other?
I have one other.
Okay,
It's
go for it.
actually more terrifying.
Oh my god!
If it-
I'm glad I'm sitting on the
It's
floor
possible,
right now.
exactly.
If I were wearing socks, I'm pretty sure they would be knocked off at this point. But go for it.
All right. So this is 2011 now.
Okay, so 5 years later.
So I'm a junior in college. I'm just home for the weekend. It's like 2:30 on like Saturday morning. So I had never gone to bed.
Okay.
So I was up
So
working.
you're up late on Friday.
Yeah, I was up late on the Friday. Yeah, makes sense. And I'm just working on this, like some project or something on the floor. I don't really remember at this point, but I've got the TV on. My door is closed, and I'm just working on this project.
Are you in a college dorm at this point?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in my parents' room, my parents' house, in my room again.
Okay.
I forgot
so your
part.
childhood bedroom. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So, I hear footsteps outside in the hall, like coming up to my door. And so like the floor is creaking, and I can it's carpeted, but I can still hear somebody walking around on the carpet. And so my first thought is that it's actually my sister who was like a senior in college at this point. I thought she was trying to go past my room just to go downstairs, because the way my parents' house is lined up is that if you want to go downstairs, you have to pass by my room. And so if I left my room and then made a left, the stairs are right there. So I'm fully expecting to see my sister when I throw open the door, and it's not like, oh, just trying to sneak out or whatever. It was more of like, hey, are you doing something? Because I want to do something too.
Yeah.
So I open the door, and instead of seeing my sister, I see I'm not even sure what I really saw, but I'll describe it as a glowing skeleton.
What?
It was like it had a skeleton face.
Okay.
And it looked like it was wearing some sort of black robe with a hood.
Here we are with the robe again.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was about my height.
Okay.
And
you're like mid 5 foot, right? Like
yeah,
around
we're like 5'4". Yeah. So
it
was like not even a foot away. It was like right on the other side of my door, staring at me, leering at me. And when I saw it, first of all, I felt like I just like couldn't move. I was so terrified. I feel like my heart stopped.
Yeah, because you're seeing a skeleton at 2 a.m.
Right,
oh my God.
right, exactly. And I feel like this thing was there forever, but it was probably only like, again, just like a few seconds.
But again, a few seconds would feel an eternity at 2:30 in the morning when you see a glowing skeleton.
Right, exactly. Especially when I'm not expecting this.
Yeah.
Eventually, it seemed like forever, but it was probably only like 10 seconds. It just disappeared into thin air, like it was never there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's not like the other one that looked like it was kind of melting in the floor or something.
No, it was there one instant and gone the next.
Good grief.
And then I didn't move for like a few seconds because I'm like, did I just see what I saw?
Yeah.
And I did see, like, you know how like when you look at like a bright light, you can see like the after image, I guess, of that
yeah,
light.
if you close your eyes and there's still a little, like, I'm looking at the window right now, and if I close my eyes, there's a still shade of the window a little bit. It's still shade of the light.
Right.
Yeah.
So even after it was gone, I still saw the after image of this skeleton face for like a minute.
God.
And
yeah, which is like sort of secondary supporting that it was actually there when your eyeballs are processing the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good grief. Did you ever ask your sister or any of the other family members if they had seen anything weird?
So my mom at one point, I think, hinted that not really hinted, like alluded to that she saw some things in their house too.
Yeah.
But like I didn't say anything that time to anybody.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think that my parents like believed in ghosts.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what I saw either.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, I feel like if you were up late and then you wake up and you're like, Mom, I saw this thing last night, and I know at least my mom would say, what time did you go to bed? Are you sure you weren't feeling a little bit loopy because it's 2 a.m?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But if they've alluded to maybe seeing stuff, like, maybe look into that, because that sounds wild.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Good grief. Are you sure nothing happened to the land or anything? Because if you're the first family on that house...
I know that the land that the houses are built is like a development. I know that it used to be a farm.
Okay. So, not an indigenous burial ground or something.
As far as I know, not.
Okay.
But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
It did turn out to be some ancient burial ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does she know? Is she aware that her parents are rooming with the Grim Reaper? That's what I want to know.
Well, she is. I think the
Are her
follow-up
parents
questions...
aware that they are rooming with the Grim Reaper?
Well, she said her mom has alluded to maybe seeing some stuff. So...
Dude, if that was my mom, I would be like, tell me everything.
Yeah.
Pry her. Like, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
maybe we should get Marissa's mom on the show.
Seriously. Like, and it only it's not like it's something that's following Marissa around. It only happens when that's her parents' house.
Yeah. Which is sort of good and bad. Like, good for Marissa, like, now that she's married and moved out and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't have to deal with that.
That if she ever wants to sleep over her parents' house.
Yeah. Maybe they can commandeer the sister's room. Just coordinate it so you don't sleep in your childhood bedroom.
I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
If I opened my door
Yeah.
at 2 a.m. and saw a fucking skeleton robed like freaking wraith thing in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like, I think
so
I
much.
also would have my heart stop.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the best description of it.
And the wildest thing to me, and I don't remember how well this registered like a month ago. She said it was a glowing skeleton, and she knew partly it was glowing because, like, when she blinked and it was gone, she blinked a few times and the after image was still on your
afterglow.
retina.
Yeah.
And that's like that is something in your, like, a biological processing of your...
that means if it was in her head and she thought she saw it, then it's like I thought I saw that. But if it's when you look out a window or something, like, you still seeing the imprint.
That's in your eyeballs, that's not in your brain necessarily.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you're making it up, your eyeballs, I don't know, would register.
Oh my god, I was legit freaking out the entire time you were listening to this. Like,
Yeah.
just because she doesn't know anything happened on that farm.
Doesn't mean anything didn't. But
Farms can be very violent.
True, but one would think it would just be like the sudden violent death of a chicken or something. Right?
Oh my god.
Rather than the sudden violent Grim Reaper showing up at 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah, I mean, geez, that's so weird.
Yeah. So I don't know which order this one's going to wind up being, but tonight, for whichever number this winds up being, we have Matthew. Say hello, Matthew.
Hello, Matthew.
But we know each other from Ghosts.
We do.
Ghost tours, that's how Celeste and I met as well. So you also have a spooky story.
I have a few of them.
Pray tell.
How would you like me to organize my spooky stories? I have a few.
Okay, is there a certain theme or anything?
There is a theme. I think that depending on how much time you want to take on this, I think the interesting thing about my stories is that they collectively explain why I actually believe in ghosts now.
Okay.
I did not believe in ghosts when I started as a ghost tour guide.
Oh.
I did not.
Oh, wow.
I took the job because it was a job. It gave me an opportunity to dress up in funny clothes.
That I think
and it was,
is also why I started.
Yes, and it was theatrical, and I have always been a theater kid, and so I thought, how cool would this be to just tell ghost stories, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that the things that happened to me on the tours over this course of several years have now convinced me that there are, in fact, ghosts.
Okay.
Or at the very least have left me admitting that there are some very real things that have happened either to myself or to people that I respect, and that I cannot explain those in any other way except for possible ghosts.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So
I can get into that however you would like. Teasers or like dive straight into the big stories. What do you want?
Let's go chronologically.
Chronologically.
Or at least chronologically by impact, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sure.
So you started, I think we started the same year, 2015.
We did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I started in the winter, right at the start of 2015.
Okay.
And at the time, like I said, I had been performing magic as an 18th century magician.
Okay.
And a friend of mine was on the tours. She actually went to church with me. And she was like, oh, you do 18th century magic? You should join us and become a ghost tour guide. But okay, so when I started it, I didn't really think much of ghosts. And watching all of those TV shows always seemed like a bunch of really, really nervous people who were whipping each other into a frenzy over the most ridiculously silly things for TV, for the sake of TV.
The Ghost Adventures type of
Yes,
things.
exactly. And I kept watching them wanting to be frightened or wanting to be impressed, and I kept being disappointed. And so I thought, maybe this is all a bunch of nonsense. I don't know. Now, there were definitely interesting stories that I could not explain that I had heard from other people. Like my father actually had an interesting story with a ghost. And so I had heard from people I respect that there are ghosts, but I hadn't really thought about it myself. Well, okay, so what influenced me? What influenced me were three things. Pictures that I saw that I couldn't explain.
Okay.
Stories that I heard from people that I couldn't explain, and things that actually happened directly to me that I could not explain.
Okay.
Now, I have a PhD in history. I sort of value my own ability to discern nonsense from reality. In fact, I was trained to do that.
Okay.
So I kind of brought that skepticism to this experience and assessment.
Okay.
But the first time that somebody came up to me with a picture that they had just taken in the cemetery of the old meeting house on the South Route, at the end of the South Route.
Yeah. So for those who had listened to Meredith's story, it's the same cemetery that it ends in with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And someone had taken a picture of some of the windows. A lot of the guides encourage people to take pictures.
Yeah, a lot of
And
churches do.
that things appear in the pictures that people can't explain. Well, this picture that somebody brought up to the guide who was sitting next to me back in the square at the end of that tour it looked exactly like, you know that Scream mask,
Yeah.
right? It looked exactly like someone had put that Scream mask on and then pressed their face up against the window. It was either a person in the Scream mask in the chapel trying to scare the students, or there was a ghost there. I mean, it was not one of those crazy pictures that looks weird and like if you squint, you
Tilt your head just to the left.
Exactly.
Yeah. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, it's very common in that cemetery to only get a photo like that in a burst of a couple. And if I recall correctly, that photo was like someone had held their hand on the shutter button for a few seconds and taken a couple, and it was just the one that had the weird thing.
That may be true. I had thought that this picture didn't survive because what happened... Yeah, so what happened was... I don't know if you remember Nikki, but so Nikki was the tour guide, and the person had come up to Nikki and had shown it to us both. Yeah. And both of us were completely gobsmacked. Yeah. And Nikki said, please send me that picture. Yeah. And the student took down her, whatever coordinates and promised to send it, and we never received the picture. But it was one of the freakiest things I had ever seen. Yeah,
and I remember her saying stuff about that, like in the day or two after. I don't know if I was on that night, but she was like sincerely freaked out about
Yes,
that.
both of us were
Yeah.
completely freaked out.
Yeah, because it's, again, that's not one of the common things that you see in
It
old
wasn't
press.
orbs and all
Yeah.
that crap.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think orbs are baloney. Now, there are people out there who sincerely believe in orbs, and I'm sorry that I just offended you. But to me, that always has looked like it is easily explained by the light play on a camera.
Orbs are. Yeah.
Yes, orbs are. But this was not that.
Yeah.
Very definitely not that.
Because the wild thing about this photo, from what I recall from hearing about it, is that because usually when folks are taking photos in that graveyard in particular, it's usually like a soldier or like a silvery figure inside the body of the graveyard itself, but not necessarily anything that's inside the church.
Oh.
And the photo itself was of someone was taking a photo of the column of the church.
It was one of the
looking at-
upper windows. Yeah.
upper like bell tower area
Yes,
of that,
exactly.
and looking out from the bell tower area,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's not where people usually see something, and it's not the kind of thing that people usually see, which
Yeah.
is like extra wild.
Yeah, it was super creepy.
Before any listeners dismiss this as like, well, why wouldn't it just be somebody in a mask in the window? That's an actual church.
Yeah,
Like that's a place that people go to worship.
and okay, like there's always one weeknight where the choir goes and does rehearsal. That was not that night.
Yeah.
And aside from choir nights and worship nights, the church is dark. And it was not a Sunday, and it wasn't a choir night.
Yeah.
So no one was there.
No one was there. And also it's like they're very gracious to let us use the graveyard.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily advertise the graveyard like tour.
Yeah,
You know?
no, it's very much like this unknown soldier happens to be here.
Yeah.
And but they're not saying like, here, they don't have a tab on their website that says known hauntings or anything like that.
And the fact that from what the person sounded like, it's not like there was somebody moving or anything.
Because again, it's the very top window. It's at least 3 or 4 stories. Like, someone would have noticed, even like on choir nights when it's just the sanctuary that's lit up so the choir can rehearse.
Yeah.
You can still occasionally see like a little bit of light up towards the bell tower, not in the bell tower, but towards the bell tower. And even, I don't know how this changes, but from the outside looking in, like, the windows aren't providing a whole ton of light, especially at 9 o'clock at night.
So that was the first thing I ever saw that I basically turned to Nikki and was like, wait a minute, this is challenging all of my presuppositions, right? Yeah. Okay. Subsequently, I had 2 people on my own tours who took pictures of the Gadsby's windows at room number 8. Yeah.
Shout out to the Female Stranger episode. If you don't know the story behind that, go listen to that one.
Exactly. So now I always tell people this story during my tour, and I always say, like, can you imagine the rudeness? Here I am talking, and they're shooting pictures of the window, right? But in fact, and that's usually for a laugh, but I was really struck twice in the space of, I guess, 5-year period. 2 different pictures were brought to my attention that, now, occasionally Gadsby staff will kind of move close to the window and move back when they know that there's a group out there just to freak people out. This was not that. You can tell when there's an actual human being there. Yeah. But this was very definitely a translucent human shape.
Huh.
And that freaked me out. And especially freaked me out that I've seen it now twice.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh my God.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough a couple of years ago to have been given permission to take a group into room 8 and tell the story in room 8 with the door closed, by the way. It was really something. Okay, so those are the pictures, all right?
So the
pictures definitely, worth 1,000 words, blah, blah, blah. But those were not, those were what said to me, like, Matthew, there's something out here that you're probably not understanding, but my convictions were not shaken to their core by those. The next couple of stories shook me to my core. Okay, and I have nowhere to go with these next couple of stories except for
Ghost
earthing. Okay.
I mean,
all right, so we're at a point of pause for we're about to talk about Matthew's second set of stories that really shakes him up. Any thoughts before we head on?
Knowing how good of a storyteller Matthew is, and also knowing that he only really picks out the juiciest of juicy stories.
Yeah.
If these shook him to his core, I'm a little...
Yeah, having been there, I was sitting where I'm sitting right now while Matthew was telling his stories.
The female stranger ones, I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I've had a couple things with the female stranger. Go back to my first episode or so when...
Yeah, when it was just me and you were the guest.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Let's go.
So the first thing I'm going to tell you, both of these happened at the end of the North Route tour, so in the cemetery there in Christchurch.
Yeah. And for the vague description of that layout, I think we got into it a little bit in Celeste's first episode. So if anyone needs a refresher, it's vaguely L-shaped. It's a little bit bigger than the cemetery that I end in. But yeah.
And I usually end my tour at the grave of Van Warren.
Okay.
So everything I'm about to tell you happened. I will always stand at the head of the grave of Van Warren and have everybody standing around that sarcophagus, right? All right. The first thing I'm going to tell you is the stories that were told to me that I had no experience of. And then I'll tell you what happened to me. So a few years ago, I had a guy on my tour, an older gentleman and his son who was probably in his late 20s. The two of them were unbelievably annoying. They were yammering along in the corner of the group on a public tour as I was trying to tell my stories, and they kept kibitzing back and forth. Then, you know, as I was telling the story of the female stranger at Gadsby's, they jumped out and started like shooting photographs as if, you know, they were on the runway at a French fashion show. And it was super distracting, and I eventually just turned my back on them so that I didn't get distracted by all their activity, right? So I was not well disposed towards these two by the end of my tour, but to my surprise, at the end of the tour, the two of them came up to me and said, with great excitement, "We're really sorry if we were distracting on the tour." And I was like, "Yeah, you were." And they said, and the younger fellow was doing most of the talking, said, "My dad is actually a ghost hunter." And I said, "Wait, like a ghost hunter like the guys on television?" And he said, yes, he is. And I turned to the older gentleman and I said, "Is this true? Like, you actually have direct experiences with ghosts?" He said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Okay, I need to hear your best story. Tell me your best story." And he says, "All right, well, then I guess I'll tell you how I got into ghost hunting." "All right, bring it on." He says, "So I used to be a Civil War reenactor, and the group that I was reenacting with, I can't remember exactly where he was from, but I think he was a Union reenactor, and he joined a bunch of other Civil War reenactors to reenact a battle in Tennessee, okay? And so the battlefield was a place called Stones River." I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, so there were several hundred people who had come down for this big Stones River battle reenactment. And this was an extraordinarily bloody battle in the Civil War. Many, many people were lost on both sides, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this battle had involved a regiment from Michigan that had a very unique uniform style, he said. Well, nobody at the reenactment was actually wearing the original Michigan regimental uniform. They were just wearing, standard blues and grays.
Yeah.
They fought the battle. At the end of the battle, the trumpet sounded, all the dead people rose again, and they all marched off to get drunk someplace in a camp, right?
Feels very Civil War in a different sort of way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this fellow who I was talking about, the fellow I was talking with, he had gone to the opposite side of the river from where the battle had happened and had set up his tripod and was shooting pictures of the battlefield across the river. There are rocks interspersed between the two shores in the middle of the river.
Yeah. Sort of like if you're on a trail run or something, there's always a couple that'll get you across a stream type of thing?
Much larger.
Okay.
Much larger rocks.
Okay.
So like a person could sit down or lie down on these rocks.
Okay.
So they're big rocks in the middle of the river. And I have not been there, so I can't testify to this, but this is what he described.
Yeah.
He sets it up and he starts to take a picture.
Okay.
And he shoots a number of pictures, and then he looks at the picture he has just taken of the battlefield.
Okay.
Standing on one of the rocks in the middle of the river is a Union soldier wearing the Michigan uniform that was not represented in this reenactment, but that was original to the battle.
Oh my God.
He is looking at the digital photograph that he has just taken, and the guy is waving at him.
The Michigan guy.
The Michigan guy is waving at the photographer.
Oh my God.
And he is looking at the picture, but also at the rock where there is no one standing.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Simultaneously,
Yeah.
right?
So, I have my mic right in front of me, and so it's okay, here in the viewfinder, metaphorically speaking, that I'm pointing at my mic for,
Yes.
is the guy, and then over there is not the guy.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Right?
What makes this uniform different from...
I have no blessed idea. I didn't get into that detail.
Editing
all
Lisa.
all I really understood was picture man, actual reality no man, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, this made a deep impression on him.
Yeah, it does.
And he started to get into ghost hunting, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Eventually, he did it for about 2 years, but then he got to a point where he said it just got to be too freaky. He would be at places where he could actually feel the spirits whirling around him, kind of like a torrent of water or something like that. He said he felt different temperatures in spaces where he was standing, as these eddies of spiritual energy would be swirling around him and stuff. And he was like, I'm out,
Yeah.
But apparently he wasn't entirely out, because he was doing things like going on my ghost tour, right?
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, I thought this was super cool, and I thanked him. The two of them, said their goodbyes, and off they went.
As I was first hearing him talking about the story, I was like, I think this sounds familiar. Okay, I had heard this story before, because after
surprise, we're all
tours,
friends.
yeah, after the tour, sometimes we go out drinking or getting something to eat.
There's a place nearby that has really great pretzels, and we go out and get pretzels. And
even though I had heard this story before, I still got chills listening to it again, because it is so...
It's so creepy and specific.
Yes.
It's so specific.
The idea of taking a picture, looking at the camera, seeing something there, looking up, it's not there, looking down at the camera, it's right there.
Yeah, that's so creepily specific. And it's it sounds like this guy has a tripod or something.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can reline it up or whatever. It's still lined up. It's still the same circumstances.
And the fact that it was a uniform that no one else on the battlefield was wearing.
Because if it were a uniform that somebody else was in, it's okay, maybe someone is pranking you and dove into the bush or something.
Or even then, I'd be like, oh my God, is somebody in the river right now? Are they okay?
Yeah.
But... no, and it's implied that he didn't even notice the person when he was taking the pictures.
Yeah.
Like that the only
And
way
the
to
guy
see...
was waving.
I know, like he saw him and he was... Do you think the Civil War guy was actually really excited? Like, a camera? I don't think I've had my picture taken before.
There's something I didn't think to ask Matthew at the time, and maybe he didn't think to ask this person. But was the guy in a uniform with a tripod? Because if he was in uniform with a tripod, then maybe Ghost Michigan guy saw someone dressed like from his own time, was like, oh, hey, there's a person on my side.
Oh, like if he was in his, if the guy
if the
who was taking the
photographer,
picture, if the photographer was wearing a Union uniform, then he would be like a Union soldier. He wouldn't even register the camera. Yeah. Especially because that's not what cameras look like.
But yeah, no, I didn't think to ask him. I don't know if Matthew thought to ask.
I guess I figured, like, I guess... Well, I mean, maybe not if he was across the battlefield. Unless he, like, died early and then was like, I'm going to go F off and take some pictures now. Yeah. Maybe. Can we say fuck on this podcast?
Yes.
Okay. I know, but it's just, it's weird.
As you'll hear in a moment, we mark it explicit on Spotify so we can say fuck more than once.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
It's weird because I tell, like, my parents to listen to this, you know?
Yeah.
I tell family.
Yeah.
Either way.
Beware of youths. We are rated explicit for a reason.
Besides all the death that we talk about.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta say fuck. Anyway.
As we will see in this next... as it's still coming up, I guess.
Yeah. Alright, on we go.
Alright, well... 6 months later, we are once again on a public tour. Yeah. We are wrapping up in the cemetery at Christchurch. And, you know, at the end of the tours, I'm sure you've had this experience. This is when, if somebody has a ghost story, they're going to come up and they're going to tell it to you, right? I had this couple on my tour who were probably in their, let's charitably say that they were in their late 40s, but they looked more like they were in their mid 50s.
Okay.
And they turned out to be a brother and sister, not a couple. And the fella kind of comes up to me and quietly says to me, like after everybody else has left, would you like to hear an interesting story? And I said, I always want to hear an interesting story. And he goes, well, this is my own ghost story. And he says, when I was a boy, he says, we grew up down around an old battlefield. And he says, and I'm kind of looking at his sister like, your brother's not crazy, right? And she's like, she's kind of nodding like, no, this is all real. This is all true, right? Yeah. And he says, my buddy and I, we used to go down to the battlefield at night, and we would look for, we'd use a metal detector to look for buckles and bullets and things. And I said, you know that's illegal, right? And he's like, oh yeah, we knew that. He says, that's why we would go really late at night. And I said, oh, all right. Well, he says, so one night we was in the woods, and we were going through the woods, and we hadn't found anything that night. And then I heard some rustling up ahead of me, and it looked like there was some people moving in the woods. So my buddy and I, we ducked down behind two separate trees. We thought that it was the ranger and that he was about to catch us. Yeah. He says, as we was watching, we saw 4 men walking in a line wearing historic old-time clothing, and they had shovels over their shoulders. And they was walking in a line, and as we were watching, they started rising up into the air, and then they just disappeared.
What the fuck?
Right?
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my God.
And I'm looking at this dude like, and I kind of hold a pause there for a moment. I said, well, what did you do? And he goes, we ran like hell, of course. He says, we ran back to my car, and he said, we just drove on out of there as fast as we could. And he says, we were driving 10 minutes down the highway before I turned to my buddy and said, did you see what I saw? And he said, yes, I did.
God.
And he said, and we never spoke again about that incident ever. And I was like, wow. And I said, damn, that's kind of amazing. And I said, and I looked at his sister and I said, is this true? And she said, that's the story he told me after it happened. I have to assume it's true. And I said to him, well, that's really interesting. What was the name of the battlefield where that happened? And he says to me, it's down in Tennessee. It's called Stones River.
No. Oh my God. Ugh. Is the last one also Stones River?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. I heard two of the best ghost stories I had ever heard in
Same
my lives,
battlefield.
6 months apart by two completely groups of people, different groups of people, and both of them were about the same Civil War battlefield that is located about 900 miles away from Alexandria.
Yeah.
Now, how, what?
Yeah.
I am not going to curse on your radio show, but I tell you what.
We swear. We mark it explicit on Spotify so we can say fuck more than once.
Well,
right?
What the absolute fuck? I was completely stunned when the guy said that.
No shit.
And I said, all right. And I said to him, well, you have just rocked my world, sir, and let me explain to you why. And I told him the story that I had heard about Stones River from the other guys.
Yeah. And
I just screamed! I immediately screamed. And then I go, oh God, we should have recorded that. Stone River! I'm never going to Stone River. You can put a gun to my head and I will never go there.
And here I am being like, we should go as a tax write-off.
Oh my God. You know what? We could, but only if you're prepared.
Okay.
see
I'll
some
go. I'll go. It'll be fun.
I'll go with you. I won't be happy about it.
We'll be.
But I'll go with you.
We'll be BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Oh, I have to be Ryan since I'm scared shitless.
Anyway, on we go.
Oh my God.
What happened to me?
Yeah.
Don't get excited. I didn't see anything. All right?
God.
I didn't see anything. However, at the end of the tours, sometimes people will come up to you, as I said earlier, and they'll ask you questions. They'll want to take pictures with you or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always say at the end of my tours, I'll be here for a few minutes if you want to ask any further questions or if you want to take pictures or anything else. Well, a woman came up to me probably 4 years ago. And she says to me, who is the woman in the white dress who comes and prays at those stones over there? And she points to a couple of stones that were close to where we had ended the tour.
And you usually end towards that's mid.
I'm standing right in front of
mid-middle.
Anne Warren's grave.
So if your bird's eye view of it, it's kind of, if you could call a center of the graveyard, it's right about the center.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
It is about halfway along the walkway to the alongside the church to the front door.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
It is the only, I think, sarcophagus in the entire yard. So it actually contains a body.
Yeah. And she had pointed towards which direction? Do you remember? Or?
I mean, I was facing towards the
big gate.
The big gate. Yeah.
So, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So now the people who are, the woman says to me, who is the woman who kneels in the white dress and prays at those stones over there? And she's talking about stones behind me in the yard.
Yeah.
And I said, now I assume immediately that this woman is playing with me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on a public tour. Who knows what they're thinking? So I just kind of said, I don't know. Tell me about the woman. And she says, well, it was a woman in a white dress. She was kneeling at those two stones when we came in. I was listening to you talk. I looked over, wondered, who is that person? Looked back at you, and a couple of minutes later, I looked back, and she was gone. And I said, huh, that's interesting. I said, I have absolutely no idea who it is. I kind of wasn't going to take the bait, so I just said, well, I don't know. And I said, do you think it was a ghost? And she said, I don't know, but I mean, I can't understand where she could have gone. Like, I didn't look away for that long. So again, I was pretty skeptical. Anyway, 4 years passes.
Okay.
This was probably about maybe 9 months ago or something.
So late 2022.
Somewhere around there. Another person, also a woman, comes up to me at the end of a public tour. And she says to me, as she points at these same two stones, who's the woman in the white dress who prays at those stones over there?
Same corner?
Yeah, same stones.
God. Oh my God.
And I said, wait, what? Like, now I am freaked out, right? And now I had the presence of mind to say, okay, wait, what did she look like exactly? Did she look like a real person? She said, yeah, she looked like a real person. I was like, not like you couldn't see through her or anything. She's like, no. She looked like a real person in a white dress. She was kneeling at those stones over there like she was praying. She said, I looked at you for a split second, and I looked back, and she was gone.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I
Oh my God.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
Good grief. Good grief.
two completely different people, 4 years apart,
Yeah.
same exact place,
Oh my
see the
God.
same thing,
Oh my God.
and don't have any idea that the other one exists.
Yeah.
Two people explain the two best ghost stories I've ever heard in my life, and they both take place in the exact same Civil War battlefield that is 900 miles away.
Oh my God.
And then a series of pictures that I simply cannot explain and definitely do not fall into the realm of like light reflections and orbs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I basically throw up my hands and say, okay, I don't know what we're dealing with here, but there is clearly something beyond physics at work here.
Yeah.
I'm a little freaked out because you know where he tells his stories?
Yeah.
That's where I tell my stories. And now I'm going to be paranoid the entire time that I'm telling my stories. Like, is there a woman behind me?
Yeah.
I think I might put myself, like, on the side so that I can see.
Well, so there's two options to go to
'Cause
put
me
your
and
back
Matthew
to
have the
either the
same.
church or the church's admin building. So now you'd be able to see.
I'm not going to put my back to the church. I feel like that's way more haunted.
This one's really good. This one we just did yesterday, so still fresh in my mind. But this is Eliza.
Okay.
So I am here with our friend and colleague Eliza. Introduce yourself, Eliza.
Hello, I'm Eliza Kelly.
All right, and we met doing ghost tours.
Yeah.
So what have we got?
Well, when I first started, I have to admit, like, I wasn't really, I'd say, open quite yet in terms of, you know, feeling things, seeing things. So it was really interesting. One of the first nights that something occurred, it was a group from Texas, a student group.
Yeah.
And they seemed very open to seeing anything. So they were a lot of fun right from the get-go. And immediately the second stop was the Carlisle house. And things just started to feel off. I finally found out that they had been at Mount Vernon prior to coming to see me. And I have a very big connection with Mount Vernon.
Okay. For listeners who don't know, Mount Vernon, George Washington's main mansion. But yeah, it is a very common stop for a lot of the student groups. But yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like that was part of it. And they happen to be from Texas. I don't think I mentioned that yet. And we had a lot of little things that went on that particular tour. But it wasn't until another group from Texas came the weekend of the anniversary of the 5,000 soldiers, Union soldiers, descending upon Alexandria.
those who don't know Civil War history, basically Civil War is declared about 2-3 days later. Alexandria City is taken over by Union troops.
Yes, so this was back in May, and there was also that weekend a full moon. I can't remember if it was it the blood moon?
I don't remember.
I feel like it was an important full moon. It wasn't just
we just had a blue moon, so
right. I know, there's been a lot going on.
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, again, really connected with that particular group from the start. And this particular night, I kind of looped around. I took them to the cemetery in the middle rather than at the end because we had so many students coming through, and I really wanted to be able to get them to places that weren't super crowded all at once. So we get to the cemetery, and they're taking the pictures after I've told all the stories, and all of a sudden one of the girls goes and I was like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Something scratched me."
What?
And I was like, "Oh." And I looked at her friends and I said, "Did you guys?" Like, "No, we didn't do it."
Yeah.
And this group was not a wild and rowdy group, so it wasn't like they would be lying
They're
to
not
me.
messing with each other like
Right,
that.
right.
Yeah.
They had been really great up until, they were still great, but.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I have, in the recent year, been on a show called A Haunting.
Okay.
And I played a woman
Okay.
who had been scratched
Okay.
by a demon.
Oh my god. Are you allowed to say which episode you're on yet or no?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's aired.
Okay.
It was it was episode 4 in season 11.
Okay.
It's really interesting because this woman has actually contacted me on Facebook and been like, "Oh, yeah, you played that really well." That's what it was like. But
oh my god.
yeah, but I was thinking of this as I'm hearing this poor girl having been scratched, and I said, I couldn't stop myself. I said, "How many?"
Like how many scratches?
How many yeah, I was like,
Oh my god.
So she turns around and shows me her back. I mean, it was like she had a tank top on or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, so we're gonna move on."
How many was it?
It was 3.
And that's a big deal?
It is.
Okay.
It is kind of a sign of an entity.
Okay.
And not a good entity.
Yeah.
She told me later that she had actually, right before we walked into the cemetery, seen a man in a black hat. And I know that we've had that kind of
The infamous Hatman. But that is a very paranormal, like a regular trope in paranormal things is the Hatman. Tons of theories about who or what that entity may or may not be, but that's creepy.
Yes. So from this moment on, and of course she's begging me to tell her what does it mean.
Yeah.
And so I finally just nonchalantly said, "Well, it's said to possibly be demonic. We're going to go." And so she stuck to my side for the rest of the evening.
Makes sense.
There was another, as we're walking to the Carlisle house, there's one of the boys says, "Oh my God, did you see that black thing in the sky? It was like ash and it just disappeared." And I was like,
What?
yes, this was on our walk in between from the cemetery to
Back towards
towards the square and the Carlisle house.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of freaking out right about now.
Yeah.
And then this boy starts coughing.
Oh my god.
And I
As if
said-
you got ash
Yes.
down in your lungs.
I said, "Did you swallow it?" So we are all on like high alert. We're practically holding hands at this point. Just all gathered around. And one of the girls, I felt so bad. She was almost in tears. She was so spooked at this point. And we're standing in front of the Carlisle house. And when I said, "There are no ghosts inside the house," she said, "Oh, thank God." And then I looked at her and I couldn't. I said, "But
So-
you're not inside the house." And she just started to bawl.
The ghosts aren't in the house, the ghosts are in the yard.
The end of that particular evening, the one with the girl that got scratches, and she kept asking the whole night, "Are they disappearing? Are they going away?" Oh, sorry. And they did fade a little bit. we get to the square where she reunites with her mom, who'd been chaperoning the other group. And she says, Mom, I got scratched. And her mom looks at me, and I was like, yeah, it was 3 scratches. Not really thinking that her mom's going to know. But she looks at her daughter and says, I guess it's about time we talked about those spirits that follow you.
And
The mom? What kind of freaking movie did Eliza walk into?
I don't know, but she wasn't walking on set. Good grief. But so weird thing about the recording.
I got chills.
Right about this point is the mics disconnect, and it takes like 15 minutes to get them back sorted out again.
Oh.
And it's wild. It's so wild. Oh my god.
If my mother told me that,
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell I would be thinking, but
Yeah. Right? Right? But wait, there's more.
what the fuck?
I think we left off, Mom says, I think it's about time we start talking about the spirits.
Yes, yes. So this poor girl was quite freaked out, as was I. But, you know, I'll be honest, and this might sound like tooting my own horn, but I do feel like if she was going to be with anybody that night, I was probably the right person to be with, to pop up some protection of some sort, whether I knew it or not. And her mom talked to me a little further and said that ever since she was pregnant with her daughter, that butterflies had landed on her belly, but also with the good comes the bad. And so she'd been followed her entire life, and it was clearly now time to tell her. And I'm like, wow, that was an interesting.
Yeah, that's a really freaky way to be introduced to that.
Yes.
But also, like, that's weirdly main character energy. I know it's such, like, a weird thing to do, but, like, you know, there's always some sort of transformative thing where you're doing something innocuous, and the inciting incidents, you get something creepy, and then I think it's time you heard about this.
Right.
And it's like...
And she was, 14. I'm like, oh, wow. So all the books are right. Yeah. That is truly the transformational age.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, as I led them off on their bus and, said my last goodbyes, not like that, hopefully, to the mom. And I saw this other girl that same night doing this weird, like, dance as she's walking back and forth on the stairs to the square. And I look at her and she goes, I'm walking through ghosts. I said, oh, is it cold? She said, no, it's really thick. And so I now tell people if they really, really want some kind of event while they're on the ghost tour, they should come back in May.
Yeah.
On the anniversary of the 5,000 Soldier.
That makes sense. That is not where I thought that was going.
All in one night, man. That was, yeah. So ever since, I tell people if they're from Texas, I'm ready for them.
Yeah. Honestly, some of my best groups have been from Texas, though.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if you're from Texas, come visit.
Anything, any socials, projects, anything that you want to promote while you're here?
Sure. I actually have a Western that I just finished. It's in post-production. We're actually filming the final scene this coming weekend. That is called Was Once a Hero. And then I have another Western coming up in pre-production called Black Creek. And so those two things are pretty big projects for me. And I'm looking
exciting.
forward to them. Yeah.
Exciting. So if you have any links for those, send them my way so I can put them in the show notes.
Great.
And thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. So we just did Eliza's second part of the story.
You were right. That is main character energy. That is 100% like she should get a middle grade book series on her life.
Yeah. But that is going to be most likely our absurdly long
Oh
real
my
people
god, but it was
story
so
episode.
worth it.
It's so
and
worth
it was so fun.
If you want to send in your own spooky story, shoot us an email at drearymidnightpodcast@gmail.com or comment on the Instagram at drearymidnightpod and support us on Patreon so we can keep doing this kind of thing. Patreon.com/drearymidnight. Try and update the website, which will also be in the description with all of the photos that come along with this, which we will also post on the Instagram.
Yes.
But with all that said,
Woo!
I don't even know what to do for a send-off for this one.
I don't know either. There's too many.
Be wary of women in white and unknown soldiers, I guess.
Literally unknown soldiers.
Yeah. And
Keep an eye out for butterflies.
Yeah. And safe travels home on this dreary midnight. Good night.
Night.